Good Tuesday afternoon, everybody. Welcome back down to my library. And this is going to be a very early video that I have planned throughout next month. This is going to be information on Now, an annual reading event created by yours truly. This is the second annual Novella November. So, last year I cleaned up very well. I read 13 books and probably one of the best reading months that I had of last year. So that's why I'm going to do it again this year. So I have 6 prompts that you guys can follow if you want to join along. You don't necessarily have to read horror. That's why I have like a category in here where you can like read whatever you want. But just got a stack of books here that are literally under 200 pages. Some are way shorter than that. But let's go ahead and get into the 6 prompts I have for this reading challenge. And this is loosely going to be a TBR video as well. So more on that when November starts. But let's kick this thing off with the first prompt is to read a slasher. And the book I chose for this prompt, very loosely like a slasher, but I'm counting it. This is going to be 7 Rabbits by Timothy King. And this one has been on my radar for at least a year now. And I actually friended the author, and he says that this is a very, very good book. It's basically his vision on You're Next. So I'm going to read the back. In the town of Tall Oak, high school football reigns supreme. Led by star quarterback Justin Jackson, the players walk the halls of their school like gods. But a sinister side lies behind their golden boy facade. Despite their best efforts, their atrocities will come to light. Every year, the star players take a retreat to an isolated cabin in the woods for a weekend of debauchery. This drug-fueled party is intended to be their final send-off before college. This time it will be different. This time they push their victims too far. Trapped in an isolated cabin, they will finally know what it means to be the victim. Yeah, so basically you got like a home invasion horror thriller here. And this one sounds very good. So, loosely a slasher, but I'm counting it as a slasher. 7 Rabbits by Timothy King. And I'll also be doing like audio as well. So more on that, but this is basically what I picked to read physically. More or less. Okay. The next prompt I picked out is going to be read a splatter Western or Western horror. The book I decided to pick out was Here Comes the Sun by Justin M. Woodward. And this one kind of reminds me of Blade in a way. You'll get to where I'm thinking that when I read the back here. There have been talk of monsters around the small, quiet town of Fort Whipple for some time before the evening of the brutal massacre. First there was the livestock, dead. Shriveled bodies lined the fields, drained of their blood. But when human bodies began falling from the sky, a dark protector of sorts is dispatched to minimize the casualties. Very vague, but it definitely kind of sounds like a vampire splatter western. So this runs to 131. So it should be a pretty quick read. Here Comes the Sun by Justin M. Woodward. Next is something completely different. Read a sci-fi novella. It's going to look very familiar, but I did not get to this book last year. I decided to re-add Bad Astronauts by Grady Hendrix. And this is just his vision on The Martian, apparently. So very different from what he usually writes, but I definitely do want to check this thing out. And it is 160 pages, and the font is moderate size, so it should be a pretty fun read. So we'll see what happens there. Bad Astronauts by Grady Hendrix. But I did read a sci-fi novella last year, but it was on Audible. This year, I definitely want to read that. So moving on, my next prompt is going to be either read a short story collection, or anthology. I have two here. Two of which I actually picked up from AuthorCon. And this first one is The Screaming Tree by PC3. And he said, "You'll be screaming too." This thing is only 49 pages. The back says, as impending death approaches, Frank Waters has a story to share about the evil growing in Twin Oaks, Texas. But these wicked roots stretch further than Frank understands, and the screaming tree is more powerful than he can imagine. So, very, very short read. I'll be able to knock this out in a sitting. So, that's going to be my short story pick. The Screaming Tree. My anthology is Hillbillies and Homicidal Maniacs by Jason Nickey and Stuart Bray. And this collects This collects 6 stories where it starts with Jason Nickey, then goes to Stuart Bray. This is only 177 pages, so I'm sure it's going to be very colorful and pretty messed up. So I just love this cover. This dude was awesome to talk to. And in here, he actually wrote, "Mike, crack open a cold one and enjoy the hot nanny." So I did meet Jason Nickey, but Stuart Bray wasn't there. But I decided to give this one a try. This is definitely going to be a very very weird. But that is Hillbillies and Homicidal Maniacs, Volume 1. Okay, moving on from there, I have Read a Creature feature. And I actually have like a couple here that I want to check out. And they are brand new books that I got like a couple days ago. So, the first one I want to show off is Nids by Ray Garton. And giant spiders left awry during a terrible experiment. But I'm going to read the back. Medical research, genetic experiments, no one knows exactly what goes on inside the sprawling Biogentech building on the edge of town. But after an enormous explosion at the facility, people in town start turning up dead and in pieces. Something is loose in Hope Valley, something big and fast and hungry. It has a lot of legs, a nasty disposition, and a big appetite. This is one spider you can't step on. So, this one sounds like a lot of fun, and it's 163 pages, which isn't too bad. And I discovered this author when I read Live Girls this month, and I really dug that book, so I decided to get a couple more of his books. This dude has 29 books, plus more. But this one sounds like a lot of fun. That is Nids by Ray Garton. The next possible creature feature is Lot Lizards, also by Ray Garton. And hear me out. I do count vampires as creatures. So I'm going to read the back of this. A lot lizard is a female hooker who works a highway truck stop as her territory. When trucker Bill Ketter looks for a little relaxation and release, he discovers too late that he has bitten off more than he can chew. In fact, his lot lizard is the one who does the biting. She is a vampire. One of a number who move from one truck stop to the next under the watchful and victim's vicious eyes of the repulsive Carsey brothers. Against his will, Bill becomes one of the undead. He follows the brothers and their cargo to another stop where he meets his ex-wife and children. And Bill finds himself battling the vampires and their age-old leader for the life of his teenage son. So, this is definitely up my alley. And, oh my God, that cover is beautiful. I am just in love with this cover. This is probably one of my favorite book covers. So, this is definitely happening, I hope. But that was Lot Lizards by Ray Garton. And my final prompt is simply wild card. This is any genre you want. So, got a couple books that I decided to add in here. One is like an action grindhouse revenge thriller. The other two are horror. So, this was another new addition to the library. This is Carnage on 84th Street by Judith Sonnet. Yeah. So this is basically a revenge thriller. And this is supposed to be one of her most brutal stories that she's ever written. I'm going to read the back. Haley Hurst has been abducted. She's been taken from her home and brought to a derelict apartment on 84th Street, a place notorious for violence, drug running, and horror. Haley is given as a gift to a rising gangster, a fiend named Riley Smith, whose tastes range from cruel to sadistic. But all is not lost. On the night of Haley's abduction, a killer for hire approaches the building. Jaffe Whitlock's goal is simple: clean up 84th Street and leave no witnesses. A brutal combination of grindhouse gore and 70s atmosphere, Carnage on 84th Street is one of Judith Sonnet's most messed up books. And that's saying something, considering she's written such stories as The Clown Hunt, Summer Never Ends, and Blood and Brains. This is very different for her because she really delves into very messed up, gory horror stories. 70s grindhouse action revenge thriller, I'm all for it. So, Carnage on 84th Street by Judith Sonnet. The next one, the first one you expect, by my guy, Adam Caesar. And this is basically a snuff film in novel form. So I'm going to read the back. When he's not holding down a dead-end job or lurking in his mother's basement, Tony Anastos spends his time shooting ultra-low-budget horror flicks. After meeting his sexy, fame-hungry co-worker, Anna, he sees an opportunity to launch his career into cult stardom. But when Tony's plan to jolt their next film's Kickstarter into overdrive calls for real blood, he'll sacrifice the last bit of his humanity for a shot at recognition. But it makes sense. Look at him. The stuff he makes, the shit he collects, I mean, he's the first one you expect. So, I'm going to read a blurb here that might explain this a little bit. In the first one you expect, Adam Caesar displays an equal love and knowledge of the horror and noir genres. But what really sets this slim novel apart from other books of its type is Caesar's unflinching gaze at the life of a person willing to sacrifice everything for a dream. It's as emotionally devastating as the work of James M. Cain, but with all the violence and sleaze of Tales from the Crypt. I read the first one you expect in a single sitting and loved every moment of it. Blurb by Cameron Pierce, editor of In Heaven, Everything is Fine, fiction inspired by David Lynch. So, this has been on my radar for quite some time, and I decided to add Adam Caesar in because he's one of my favorite horror authors to read from, and this one sounds like a lot of fun, but very depressing as well. And finally, as part of the wild card, I wanted to add Toxic Love by Christopher Triana, one of my absolute favorite indie horror authors working today. And this is basically an extreme horror romance that deals with like a cleanup guy at a crime scene, and he meets this woman that's just obsessed with all this gore and perversion. So this thing is going to be rough. This goes to $178. So a little bit longer, but still doable. That was Toxic Love by Christopher Triano. Those are primarily my focus for Novella November. Will I get to all of them? We'll see. But this is a lot, as usual. I'm going to try my darndest. I'm going to go short to longer in here. But I have all month to get through at least most of these. Feeling very good because I got some very short ones on here. So my first read, more than likely, is going to be either 7 Rabbits or Take It Easy on Myself and read The Screaming Tree. So these two are definitely one of my first priorities. But pretty much what I got for Novella November, and there'll definitely be more videos coming out that deal with Novella November, because I might do like a vlog throughout November. Might split it off into 2 or 3 vlogs, but we'll see. Because this is quite a bit. And luckily, all of these are under 200 pages. But some are on the cusp of 200 pages. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. And starting Friday, that. So that's all I got for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Adios. Peace.